Okay, believe we should be live. I'm going to take a second to check out the other channels that this lands on. Let's make sure it's actually live. I'll be quiet so there's no feedback loop. Okay, I see it. Looks like both are up and going. So let me announce that we're up. I need to send the URLs to everybody. Hang on, I'll be quiet again. Mute myself also. Yep. Have to unmute myself. I see a hello from the YouTube channel. Which I have. All right, you see the reply in text. Or reply when you can. We tested this earlier. So I see good. Oh, hey Victor. Good solid 8 viewers today. So yes, we're trying out this StreamYard platform, which is pretty good so far, fairly intuitive. Most of the things I attempted to do, I could just sort of find the button to do. I think it can allow you to stream to many different platforms. Right now, just excuse me, YouTube and Twitter. We wanted to try this. Maybe the next or the following radio show, I'll bring a guest back on, maybe my co-founders, maybe someone else, maybe all of the above. And it's easier to do with something like StreamYard. YouTube imposes a subscriber minimum before you can get a lot of viewers on board. Sorry, before you can invite a guest from within the system. So we did one that was pre-recorded, the Blockheads founders and I, but I'd rather have been live. Again, it's also live in part. I like interactivity, although this is maybe the first one that will really be interactive. But I also just like that it makes me think less prep is required. As long as I set a date, been doing these roughly once per week. Kind of missed last week. It was very busy and I got sick, and I'm just today healthy enough to speak for about an hour. So here we are. But again, it's a radio show because there's meant to be relatively little prep, meant to be kind of conversational. Starting with a company announcement, we have staking now. It's not totally, I don't know that staking has like a perfect definition everywhere in the world. But the way it works for us basically is, and usually the way staking works in general is that there's something with some value, and you agree to sort of tie it up, and then you earn more, usually of that thing. So for Ethereum, it's Ether, and you earn more Ether, but maybe not always. And we're actually doing it the not always way. So as you may know, we're about real world assets at BlockApps. And so we've started actually with tokenized gold and silver. And so you can stake those. You can either deposit them with a partner of ours. Maybe you have some already, and you can go and purchase them. And by staking them, you've sort of tied them up for the time being. It allows you to borrow in our eventual sort of mint to track the US dollar token, which has just been renamed USDST from Strats before. And it allows you to earn in our governance token, Kata. So this is new. We started on this not so long ago and released it kind of last week, I guess maybe the week before, in kind of private testing. So that it's alive and well. So very excited about that. What I want to talk about is kind of mostly spend the time on the legacy financial system, and then I have another short kind of cultural note afterwards. So let me start with the mild story. So this past week, I was trying to do something pretty, I thought, easy with a big bank. Basically, I have a simple kind of special purpose account. The purpose is not that important for the purpose of this discussion. Not like a high account balance or anything. And I just wanted to add a signer to it so the signer could manage like paying bills on my behalf out of that account, for instance, for this special purpose, right? And so I went into a branch a couple weeks back, and they told me that definitely it had to be done in person. And so I accepted that, and then I was available to actually schedule the in-person, or I guess there was another path other than definitely in person. They could mail me some documents, which takes a lot of time, and I could sign them, and I could send them to the other party who could sign them with a notary present, and then they would be able to add them and get up and running to the account. It sounded like, months of turnaround. So I agreed to do the in-person way. I went to one office and I tried to set an appointment online. I failed to get the appointment online because the system said that online appointments were down, and so it wouldn't allow me to book one. I called, no one picked up. So I just showed up. I showed up and they said, they don't have any appointments until what would have been this week. And I needed documents both on the special purpose entity and minutes memorializing, adding the new person's ownership to it, a board consent. They're going to review that. And I wasn't adding an owner. And, so I just left, went to another branch, and it actually all just worked fine. And the person at the other branch was able to correct some issues that had happened in the past. And, again, this is a big four bank. And you're just getting different stories from different people. And I think it's a competence thing, or just maybe they just didn't want to deal with me. But it's it shouldn't be that hard to add a signer to an account, right? You should be able to do this on the internet. In the crypto world, there's many ways you would do it. You could deploy a multi-sig contract and send funds from one to the multi-sig contract. It's sort of remarkable. And most of this is just the legacy way they do business. Some of it is to shield them and the the customer theoretically from legal risk. Um, but yeah, it's true. One trick is increase the balance on. It's absolutely right. The financial services for when the balances are high, suddenly things are pretty good. Like our business banking is for block apps is pretty decent. We get like a guy, can call them up. They can come up with flexible solutions for us as needed. But if it's something maybe a little more than de minimis, but specific, it's like not that much of a priority, right? I suppose the whole world works that way. Um, there's something like 7,000 banks in the U.S. It is nominally extremely competitive, and certainly by number it is. Although we've seen quite a bit of consolidation in the last decade plus, in part, you would sort of expect it with technology. You kind of see that all over the place. I'm trying to see if this present feature works. Let me see. Wants to share the whole screen. That's not like Zoom. I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, I can share the window. Here we go. Okay, here it is. So it's also the case that I believe due to regulatory reforms, there have been no new banks, not no new banks, but after 2009, it dropped essentially, probably the five in 2010 were already in flight, essentially to zero for the better part of a decade. It's picked back up a little now, but just nowhere near at the levels before. And so I do think that there's, and then we've also designated, we've got like four really big banks that we've sort of said are special and kind of implied that there is no limit to the quantity of deposits that are guaranteed there. Where at all other banks, there's an FDIC insured cap. I think people have not formally said this. I would say that it's implied. And I think this is part of the problem. I think it's sort of, there is the incumbents are pretty sleepy. Deposits don't move that much. They get kind of stuck in there. I guess part of the moral is, if there's something you don't like, sort of the thing you have to do is eventually take your money out of it. So this one was, I would say, incompetent but benign. Another one that has happened recently. So we're in the kind of debanking news cycle, and I feel like I should kind of pile on with that. Most people in the crypto world have either experienced a debanking, something like a debanking, or know someone fairly close to them who has. I can say that we've been actually fairly able to get banking services. Insurance is quite a bit harder. Insurance hates anything to do with crypto. And I've actually found that, so you would think, so we use some of these startup financial services, in part to just kind of spread everything around, so to speak, in case one gets tied up or shut off or something, but also because we like to, try interesting products that are out there, and they are coming online. We're a reasonably early ramp adopter for credit cards. And actually, we also have Brex, at least, for maybe we've shut it off already. I'll get into that shortly. The only reason we have Brex is around the FTX times. And disclosure, I'm pretty friendly and have known for quite some time the co-founders of Ramp. And so definitely biased in their favor. And when all of the FTX news was breaking, they didn't shut us off, but they sent like, a strongly worded email saying that, the amount we could charge on the card, which they sort of lend 1 month at a time. It's basically a charge card. There's not like, long running interest or anything, had been reduced by 80%. And could we send our P&L over and all that? This was like on like a Friday. And by Monday, they had kind of backed off of it. which I appreciated. But it made me worried. Um, and so I get it. Like it's an industry that's perceived as high risk, and there's not that much appetite to do anything other than paint with a fairly broad brush. Um, but so then we also got Brex cards in the case that um, we abruptly lose our ramp cards. Uh, and thankfully, credit cards are mostly a convenience. We do charge stuff on them, travel expenses, day to day stuff. They're not critical to our existence. And we got sort of like, and these things always kind of come near the end of the year somehow. I feel like the compliance people um, run like an annual cycle, and they're looking to kind of clean everything up um, uh, before probably the fiscal is aligned with the calendar year and before everything goes over. Someone issues some TikTok, we got to clean all these accounts up by the new year, and then they do it. So we received the following form from Brex, and it starts out not that exciting. Hold on, I'm going to share a screen again. Will it be able to do it? Yes, it will. Here we go. Okay, it might be hard to see, so I'll read specific parts. So it says Brex Inc. Crypto, AML and Sanctions Compliance Attestation. I mean, I get it. Like all insurance, all financial services, they ask you a bunch of questions, and I have like a fiery hatred of forms, but thankfully some people in the company who are more, who are day-to-day responsible for this sort of thing have less of a fiery hatred for forms. So we normally might just fill this out, but it's like it's a fair bit about our company operations. Like, do you ever take custody of funds? Do you plan on issuing a currency? Do you provide an on-ramp, an off-ramp? If yes, what are your AML KYC processes? What's the purpose of your account? Okay, let's say those are still, a little bit aggressive, but maybe kind of anodyne. I can't imagine like if you're a B2B SaaS company, do you think you get this questionnaire, or I don't know if they have any, if you like run a restaurant or something, it's like, do they ask like, what kind of restaurant are you running? Do you ever serve the kind of clientele that might be on a sanctions list? Or, maybe you get that, maybe you don't. I suspect you don't. And then you go on here, are you subject to OFAC sanctions and requirements? Do you have a risk-based controls to ensure potential criminal activities prevented? Do you have customers' relations with shell companies where ownership is not revealed? Do you see, yada, 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 right? Like, and I am sure that these are all requirements of at least certain businesses. I'm not saying that they're necessarily totally in the wrong for sending this. I certainly have consumed plenty of financial services without being asked any of these questions. But the thing is, I guess like my feeling when I receive something like this is like, I'm sort of being asked like, when did you stop beating your wife? It's kind of straight to the point with a lot of like business details and this and that. And there are times where a financial services partner would need to know all that. But Brex is a charge card, right? We're just buying food for the office and airline tickets and all that sort of thing. We may have had another account as compared with Ramp. Brex seems to offer like, a bit more in the way of services like savings accounts and all that sort of thing. The balances were all de minimis, like it was sort of an option we like to have. The product is actually okay. Both Ramp and Brex are good. They're a good experience, like buying things and then doing the expense reporting, etc. I sort of think it's actually the case that the startups are more on top of this sort of thing and probably more aggressive with the treatment of crypto than are than the big banks. The banks are sort of will do what they're told if told, but are kind of sleepier, and unless specifically pointed to something, um, probably wouldn't notice, or it has to get big, or something like that. Whereas these guys, like, we charge through the card. It's pretty much it. Like, maybe I guess they Googled, like, how do they even know we are a crypto business? Maybe we had to provide a description at some point. Like, we buy things with the credit card, like normal day-to-day things. So, it's internal expenditure. I think that they don't want crypto business, and this is probably the precursor to a not quite debanking. And so we just close the account. Like, it's not, doesn't feel like being on the right foot when people send you forms like that. It's also like, no, like, if I was going to do that and I really had to do that, and I wanted to keep the client, I'd be like, I would call the person up or have someone on our team call them up and say, hey, there's some hoops to jump through that are being required for X, Y, or Z reason. I don't see that as the motivation. I see it as them hoping to clean house. So, by the way, crypto startups are not necessarily better. For businesses, for individuals, it's pretty easy to get a Coinbase account. I think for businesses, they love to lock us out of ours, and we barely use it, right? Like, it's not like we're interchanging a lot of crypto or anything of this nature. As in the history of the business, we've been, for blockchain companies, fairly crypto light. I've heard from a friend that had a business based in Canada that they were just going to close the account unless a balance of $25 million were maintained in it. And it's like, who are you serving? My sense is that, again, while like the big banks are probably told to do stuff, the startups are really kind of proactive with the compliance in some cases. And it just makes me paranoid whenever we have money anywhere, which again is why the amounts have been small and they're kind of spread all over the place. It feels like the blockchain industry is sort of like a sin industry, like, marijuana or pornography or, payday lending or something like that, where it's, at least depending on the state, technically legal, but people don't like it. And so it's extremely hard to operate with all manner of services that you might need, like insurance, like banking, etc. But as I've said, if you don't like something, you have sort of a moral duty to take the money out. And we are trying our best to do that. So in the long run, we aim to both participate in and to some extent help create a parallel system that doesn't treat people this way. Brett, you suck. I'm sure there was a good reason behind all of this, but could have at least called us up first. And again, everybody is kind of like this who, has, I guess I would say, legacy reporting and or regulatory requirements. It's probably not their fault exactly. There's definitely a way to do it. And we've gone and closed that account. All right. Running at 24 viewers is pretty good. This platform seems to help. I guess a bunch of them, does it give me the breakdown of which channel they're on? Not obviously. Let's see. What if oh, yeah, the bulk are on X. I guess I have a lot more Twitter followers than I have YouTube subscribers. I'd also say it seems like they just show up a little bit better, like in line with the comments on Twitter. You sort of have to I feel like the YouTube visual space is smaller and you're mostly looking at pre-recorded videos, where the X space, you might just be happy to jump into a live cast. as you're going here. All right. Making kind of good time. I never quite know how long I'll go on these things. Um, Probably like a 5 or 10 minute roundup here. Um, if you listen to some of the other casts, I like to talk about things in the news in the wider society, kind of sometimes towards the tail end of the news cycle. I I think there's a lot of pressure in the world today to have a take immediately, and usually facts emerge along the way. Um, and I don't know what I think always right at the outset. I spent some time in grad school for math and have a good amount of science background, so I tend to try not to leap to a hypothesis. This is something that stayed with me for all that period of time, and just sort of like watch and see until I feel like I know what's going on. Also, I'm not typically taking takes that are too spicy, um, but this one will discuss a controversial issue from a non-controversial perspective. So it is, of course, the United Healthcare CEO assassination topic. So one thing I'm perhaps, on the flip side, heartened by, and on the other side, disturbed by, is the length of the news cycle. So I think I read this a little bit as a copycat assassination. There were the two attempts on the president-elect's life. I found those to be pretty short news cycles. The first one longer than the second. Obviously, it was more dramatic, closer to actually happening. Got hit. But still, it felt like less than a week, really. And it felt like everybody sort of moved on very fast. The second one felt like 48 hours. This one has gone over a week, I believe, and sort of the discourse is kind of evolving. Um, I think that so that part is good. That like we've noted that this is bad and weird and are talking about it. It's also bad in the sense that I kind of I kind of think that the fact that a dialogue about healthcare got started is incentivizing people to make ideological, sort of impressionistic assassinations, which in the limit is a really, really terrible way to live. Um, I think I was watching like the Pirate Wires podcast. Um, they argued, and I think I agree with them, that like Columbine was sort of a meme. How old was I? Columbine, like 10 or 11 or 9 or 12 or something. I can't remember the exact year. Um, there's certainly been school shootings before. They had not gotten the kind of like lurid national news coverage that Columbine did. And it felt like that was the point a little bit. Like these, I think it would be good if news media, and it's kind of impossible with Twitter and such these days, for better or for worse, blacked out the names of these people and like maybe the faces, because if the thing you want is to start a discussion and maybe be a martyr, etc., like that's what the media is giving back right now, and it definitely is happening in this like it feels very wrong to have someone have a fairly ill-conceived healthcare related assassination, and then this to begin a national discussion on healthcare. Like if I were a deranged ideologue without that much to lose, I would take this as like, well, maybe I'll be martyred for my pet cause. And again, in the limit, anyone who gets really popular and stands for something could be assassinated for the thing that they stand for. That is where, like, are people going to start like shooting the cable guy if the cable is out? Or are you gonna like if like a contractor is overcharging me, I'm like just gonna like put a hit out on him. Um, if I don't like the things, the like, the does this go big tech soon? Does it like media figures? Like anyone famous? Thankfully, I'm not really famous. At least not yet. Um, are they at risk? It feels like it, and we haven't so much seen any kind of retributive action. I will mention, though I do not believe that this was a hit, but like, what of OpenAI's former employees who criticized OpenAI was found dead? Um, you know, this was like a couple days ago in his apartment in San Francisco or something. I don't believe that this was like a, capital on labor class murder. Um, but the thought went briefly through my mind. Like I wasn't alive for this. I feel like the '70s were a little like this, like the Weather Underground, and locking professors and the whatever you call them, the head of Columbia in like a tower on campus somewhere. Like, this is not cool. Stop. Let's just not do this. It's not a good idea. Media should not encourage it. We should think humans are really easy to kill. It's like, you know, you get kind of close to them. It's quite easy to get a weapon. You don't even need to buy it. The guy printed it, it seems. He 3D printed the weapon. Didn't have to be a gun. Could have been something else. Probably would have succeeded. You know, people's whereabouts are fairly easy to figure out. Humans are soft sacks of meat. Let's just not do this. Stop it now. It is no way to live. I think I'm not trying to take like a. Um, some people have taken like a loud and principled moral stance, which obviously like murder is immoral. But that's not what I'm saying necessarily. I'm like thinking like, let's think consequentially. Do we want to live in a world in which like murder for displeasure is like pretty well normalized, easy to carry out? No. Yes, let's not do that, please. All right. With that note, kind of a short one, this one. Um, I'm pleased that got a good number of guests. Keep it short and sweet. Check out our website if you want to stake. And yeah, I'll keep this going. I'll see everybody next week. Thank you.